Today we're going to talk about the 30 Years of War. The 30 Years War began in 1618 and lasted for 30 years, so it ended in 1648. And the 30 Years War is a European continental war, and most of the war took place in the Holy Roman Empire. It started as just a few religious conflicts, small battles, but it soon turned into something much bigger. And we can examine the 30 Years War by dissecting it into the 4 phases. And before we get into the 4 phases, let's begin with a little background. In the Holy Roman Empire, there was a German monk, and the German monk was named Martin Luther. And Martin Luther protested the Catholic Church. And while he protested the Catholic Church, he inevitably created his own branch of Christianity, and this is called Lutheranism. And his followers that wanted to follow his new branch of Christianity, they're called Protestants. And Martin Luther's Reformation created a division among the German princes in the Holy Roman Empire, and conflict arose. And the solution to all this conflict to all the disagreement was a treaty, and the treaty is called Peace of Augsburg. And this treaty states that whoever rules the land, they have the ability to choose what religion. They can either choose to rule it as Catholic or as Lutheran. And this is very important. But it's also important to know that Calvinism, a religion that is not legal, not one of the 2 options, is also gaining momentum. And despite it not being legal, it's still gaining momentum. Now we get into the 4 phases. Our first phase is the Bohemian phase. And this phase takes place in what is modern day Czech Republic. And the Bohemian is ruled by a Catholic ruler with a Protestant majority. But the Habsburg ruler actually issues what is called a letter of majesty. And this basically says that the Bohemian Protestants are guaranteed to practice their religion. Even though the ruler is Catholic, he's saying that you guys are allowed to freely practice your religion, despite it being different. However, when he dies, the new ruler, Ferdinand II, does not think the same way, and he actually revokes the letter of majesty. And this makes the Protestants extremely upset. They just lost their right to practice their religion. So what do? In return, they do what is called the Defenestration of Prague. And this is where they throw 2 Holy Roman messengers out the window. And as Mr. Seals said, this is one of the ultimate signs of disrespect. And Ferdinand II wants the Protestants to understand that they just can't throw his messengers out the window. This is not fair. So what he does in return, or in response, is that he confronts them with what is called the Battle of White Mountain. And this becomes a easy Catholic victory. So this ends phase 1. And keep in mind that the Catholic are on top at this moment. Next phase is the Danish phase. And the Danish phase takes place immediately north of the Holy Roman Empire. And if we were to envision that today, that would be immediately north of modern Germany. So this is Denmark is a Lutheran state with a Protestant king. And the Lutheran king of Denmark, he wants to invade the Holy Roman Empire to help out the Protestants. However, this is a fail. He gets totally dominated by a man named Wallenstein, who was actually working for the Habsburgs. The king of Denmark, like I said, his plan fails, and he has to retreat back to Denmark. And it's important to note that once again, the Catholics get a huge win. Now we're into phase 3. This is the Swedish phase. The king of Sweden, his name is Gustavus Adolphus, and he's a Lutheran king, and he's also known as the man of the modern welfare. Before him, there were cannons, but when you placed them down, that's where they stuck. But he was the first one that had mobile cannons, and you can move them. And this really helped him, and he was able to score victory at the Battle of Brennenfield. And this really strengthened the Protestants' cause. And I want you guys to know something. The Swedes were actually financially helped by the French. And you might find this weird because France is Catholic and Sweden is Protestant. So why would the French help out a Protestant state? Well, Cardinal Richelieu was the first minister of France, and he cared way more about the balance of power than spreading his religion. If you guys were to look at a map back in time, you would see that the Habsburg completely surrounded the France, and he was totally concerned about this. So he decided to financially help Sweden so that they could hopefully weaken the Holy Roman Empire. Now we enter phase 4, and this is the French phase. And keep in mind, this is the largest, bloodiest, and most continental phase. So, like I said before, Sweden is currently fighting, and getting financial help from France. But then, Gustavo Adolphus dies, and all of a sudden, Sweden loses their leader, and they no longer want to fight. However, they still will help. France decides that they will fight, and Sweden will financially help them. They totally switch roles. But now, it's 30 years later, the war is getting old, it's 1648, who's winning, who cares, why are we fighting? Everyone is over it. So the warring parties decide to get together at Westphalia and make peace. The war is inconclusive. There is no Catholic winner, there is no Protestant winner, there is no winner. There is damage, there is results, there is a lot of effects, but there is no winner. So in 1648, they signed the Peace of Westphalia. And this weakens, it does many things. One thing it does is it weakens the Holy Roman Empire. They no longer have control over the princes. And France is now the dominant power, which is new because before the 30 Years' War, the Holy Roman Empire was the dominant power. The Dutch and Netherlands and Switzerland, they become independent. Brandenburg gains territory, and this is really important because this will be the foundation of a unified Germany. Alsace is given to France, which will cause many issues between its neighbors later in time. And another really cool thing is now Calvinism is accepted. And when I began, I told you that Calvinism wasn't legal, it wasn't a third option for a religion, but now it is. So that's really great. And the most important thing is that Europe really has this big turning point, and they're like, we are no longer going to fight over religion. Everyone is guaranteed freedom of private worship, and it is absolutely pointless for me to cause a 30-year war, any fight, just because you have a different religion than I. And this is a huge turning point and really a new ideal for these people. And the final thing is that the 30 Years' War causes is that there is no more violence accompanying the Protestant Reformation. That is all. Thank you so much.